Hello, party folks. So, today I would like to talk about the TV show The 100. So, if you do not know what The 100 is, it is this TV show that is a dystopian, post apocalyptic science fiction kind of thing. It came out around the same time as The Hunger Games and Divergent was super popular, but it's a TV show, and the premise of the TV show is that at one point, um, that on the Earth there was a nuclear apocalypse war thing that happened, and everyone who was on Earth died. And the only people who survived were the people who already existed in space. At the point where the TV show begins, humans have already been in space for almost 100 years, and they need to see if the Earth is habitable, if people are able to live on the Earth, because the spacecraft that they are on is running out of air. So, in order to test out whether or not the Earth is livable, they send 100 of their delinquent children to the Earth so that they can see whether or not they will live. And so that's essentially what the TV show is about. It's about the different experiences that the kids have as they try to figure out what's going on with the Earth. Okay, awesome. So, what I want to do with this video is talk about the character Finn, because Finn's character makes zero sense to me. He does not make any kind of any sense to me. And the thing is that I feel like the writers of the show don't understand Finn, and they don't understand who he's supposed to be, which is why I, as a viewer, am left so utterly confused. So, anyways, from this point forward, there will be spoilers for the first 1.5 seasons of the 100, because that's as far as I am. So when we first meet Finn, he is presented to us as this careless, reckless, selfish kind of character. The reasons that I use these words to describe him is because we learn that the reason that he is a delinquent and therefore one of the 100 is because he decided to take an unauthorized spacewalk. So he, I guess, decided to put on an astronaut suit and just go out of the spacecraft without anyone's permission. And because the proper measures weren't taken, because no one knew that he was going to do this, he ended up wasting about 3 months worth of air supply. And so clearly this is a big deal because, as I said, at the beginning of the show, we realize that the whole reason that they're being sent to Earth is because there's already not enough air on the spacecraft, and he wasted 3 months worth of air supply. To be fair, Finn didn't know that the spacecraft was running out of air, but regardless, that was still an incredibly irresponsible thing to do. And later on in the show, when Clark tells him that the reason they're on the Earth is because there isn't enough air in the spacecraft, he shows like a sad face, but overall, it doesn't seem to really make him feel a ton of regret, even though later on we find out that hundreds of people's lives end up being lost as a result of this. Now, in this same episode 1, when they are descending on the spacecraft back to the Earth, Finn decides to unbuckle his seatbelt as the spacecraft is about to enter the Earth's atmosphere. So Clark tells him that's not a good idea, that's very dangerous, and fortunately Finn decides to strap himself back in, but not before 2 other people have already decided to unbuckle themselves in order to follow his lead. Now, they don't have time to buckle themselves back in before the spacecraft hits the Earth's atmosphere, and they die once they land on the Earth. Once the spacecraft lands. And again, Clark mentions this to Finn, like, these two kids died because they were following your lead. And again, Finn does make like a sad face in terms of regret, but again, there is just nothing to indicate later on in the show that he has any like deep feelings of regret over the fact that his actions inadvertently caused the loss of lives. Now, this is where we're at with Finn, right? He, as I said, is a selfish, reckless, careless, carefree, quotation marks, character, right? But then we also find out, and this is the same episode. This is like episode 2 of the 100. As they're exploring the Earth, they find, for example, a 2-headed deer, which we assume the deer has 2 heads because of radiation. There's also some type of Loch Ness monster creature that's swimming around in a lake and biting off kids' legs. And in addition to that, they find out that there are actually other people on the Earth, but these other people don't really want to negotiate with the Skyyy people. In fact, they're way more interested in just killing them and throwing arrows through them. So they just landed to Earth, and they find out that the Earth is a very dangerous place, but Finn is wandering off in the middle of the night to explore the woods by himself. Again, not something that we would think, kind of a mature, practical, reasonable person would do. But hold your breath, because we're not done flushing out Finn's character yet, okay? Finn also is, for some reason, a peacemaker. So we see him rectify the situation between Clark and Counselor Jaha's son. So they have some tension between the two of them, and Finn works really hard to kind of reconnect them and to try to reconcile them together, which it seems like somebody who's a peacemaker would show more concern about the lives of people than Finn has shown just in the previous episode. And then later on, Finn is also a voice of reason, so he's constantly trying to talk down Bellamy from doing these really reckless things that could result in the loss of life and different things. And for the most part, he is just kind of co-signing Clark. But at the same time, it's like, well, now this character is reasonable and he's the voice of reason, but just a couple of episodes ago, he was just doing reckless things and allowing people to die, but okay. Then later on, when the kind of war between the grounders and the Skyyy people and the 100, I guess, begins to escalate, and Bellamy is preparing for war to like really fight against them. Finn decides, like, hey, you guys, we need to go. We need to try to make peace with them. And he's trying to convince Bellamy and he's trying to convince Clark that they need to make peace with the grounders, because all of this endless fighting is going to just result in the loss of more lives. But again, this just seems very inconsistent with Finn's character, because in the first 2 episodes, we kind of learned that he's this careless, reckless character who does things that inadvertently cause people to have the loss of their lives, and he doesn't ever seem to feel any kind of like strong, motivating guilt as a result of these actions and when he sees the results of his actions. So it's kind of like, okay. But we spend the majority of the first season seeing Finn as this reasonable, peacemaking, level-headed, practical character, right? I wonder if that's gonna change, considering the fact that he's already gone under one extreme personality shift. Spoiler alert, it does. So, Finn has an ex-girlfriend, what is her name? Rachel? I feel like Rachel isn't her name, but she feels like a Rachel. But anyways, Raven. Her name is Raven. Anyways, so he has an ex-girlfriend named Raven, and she's about to undergo some kind of surgery, right? And Finn, in this past season, has found himself in a bit of a situationship with Clark. So he and Clark, they're friends and they're companions, and they both like each other, but that's not really ever fully explored, I guess, in the TV show. I guess what I'm trying to say is that there is no indication to me that Finn's feelings for Clark are strong enough to elicit the response that we end up getting from him. Let me explain. So so at this point in the show, Clark has been kidnapped along with the rest of some of the other members of the 100, and they don't know where she is. So I guess at the time there were more pressing matters for Finn because Raven, his ex-girlfriend, was about to undergo surgery. So he decides to stay and support her as she is undergoing this surgery. And so after she gets done with the surgery, Raven tells him, you have to go find the rest of our people. You have to go find Clark. That's what she tells him. Now, I don't really understand, because before Raven said this, Finn did show concern about where Clark was and what was happening to Clark. But for some reason, as soon as Raven tells him, you need to go find the rest of our people, you need to go find Clark, that becomes his, obsessive need. It is his obsessive need to find Clark and literally go to the most extreme extremes in order to get it. So at this point, this is where we get Finn's third personality shift for some reason. So he and a group of people and a group of his team, they are going to go find Clark and the others, and they run across this grounder, and they are essentially trying to torture him and beat out of him the answers as to where they are. And Finn seems to be taking the lead in this torture, which again, before he would be incredibly against torturing people and torturing grounders and things, but nope, I guess now because he has to find Clark, he has undergone this personality shift. And here's the thing, I understand that the writers were trying to be like, oh, he cares about Clark so much that this is why he's gotten to this point. But I feel like, one, they should have highlighted the relationship between him and Clark a little bit more strongly before she was taken away. And second of all, he should have been showing this immense amount of concern for Clark's whereabouts before before Raven told him to go and find her, because it just really comes out of nowhere. But it's after they get done kind of beating the grounder and trying to find out where he is, the other people in the group are arguing about whether or not to kill him. And Finn picks up a gun and shoots the guy. And he goes, well, a decision needed to be made. And again, this is a personality shift for Finn, because before he was all about saving everyone's life. Everybody's life counts. He's the peacemaker. Not anymore. So they continue on and they run across this girl who is part of the Skyyy people, and she's hanging off of this cliff. And the other people in the group want to save her, but Finn is like, we don't have time to be saving people. We need to go find Clark, which again, inconsistent with his character. And again, the relationship between him and Clark was not highlighted as being strong enough for this shift in personality, and his concern for Clark earlier wasn't strong enough to indicate this shift in personality. But anyways, then later on, they end up separating. He goes with another person, and the rest of the group returns to camp. And they get to a grounder village, and Finn has a gun, and he's like threatening people, and he's like, where is she? Where's Clark? And he's just getting super agitated and all of this stuff about where she is. And he actually starts just shooting at the grounders. And the only thing that makes him stop shooting at these grounders is the fact that Clark at this point has found the home base, and she is looking for him because she knows that Finn has gone out to find her. And when Finn sees her, he's like, oh, okay, never mind, my bad, Clark's right here. Now, his actions in this moment were incredibly uncalled for, and they were extreme, but Finn, again, does not show any kind of remorse over the fact that he just took like 13 innocent lives in his quest to find Clark. In fact, the only thing that Finn seems to feel bad about is the fact that Clark is at this point judging him as a result of his actions. So it's like, okay, is our boy Finn a psychopath? Is he a sociopath? Like, what is going on here? But right after that, we get into another situation where they need to decide as a group, do we need to leave in order to avoid the grounders coming to kill us? Or should we go and rescue some of our people who we know are like at Mount Weather, who we know are being held captive over here at Mount Weather? And Finn is like, no, we need to go save those people at Mount Weather. You know that if we leave, we're never gonna get them. And all of a sudden, Finn is back to this, oh, every life counts, let's save everybody, peacemaker mentality. And it's like, what is going on here? Finn just has way too many personality shifts for me. I can't do it. I literally cannot do it anymore. So I don't know what's going to go on with that. But at this point where I am in the show right now, the grounders have decided to make peace with the Skyyy people if the Skyyy people hand over Finn. And to me, that seems like a very reasonable request. Like, this dude walked into our camp, he killed 13 of our people for literally no reason at all, just because he was like having a bad day, essentially. And I feel like it's reasonable, and I understand that Finn is everyone's friend and they don't want to just hand him over, but also, like, I just don't understand. I mean, it's like I understand why they would feel reservations about it, but I also feel like the grounders have made a really reasonable request. Like, you know, like what should be his consequences for just taking that many lives for literally no good reason. So, anyways, that's how I feel about that. Hope you guys liked this video of this non-stop ranting.